Okay, we are officially live, and this is a Small Business Saturday podcast. We have a great topic for today. We're a few minutes late due to some technical issues. I need to hire a producer soon, but yeah, we have a really great topic. And so I want to introduce the guest and just introduce this podcast. So this is a podcast around small businesses. We are all attorneys. This is your first time listening in. We're all attorneys, licensed attorneys in different states. And me and Shannon are actually in the same state, but we take out time to react to different things and to the news or to movies or to documentaries, and we try to break it down for small business owners so that you guys can walk away with some legal tips that you can use to learn from some of the mistakes that people have made. And of course, you guys can even reach out to us individually if you want, more personalized legal advice. Again, this is more so like legal education, legal information. So, this is not technically personalized legal advice for your situation. We always got to put that disclaimer out there. Our malpractice insurance makes us do that. So we want to make sure that you do. If you do have questions, though, feel free to reach out to us. You can Google all of our names, and or you can just reach out to me personally. and so we have attorney Shannon Buhari, all the way down in South Bend area. You want to say what's up to the people?
How's it going? Excuse me.
All right, sounds good. And we got Attorney Jacobie Whitley in the DC area. You want to say what's up to the people?
What's up to the people?
All right. All right. And this guy, he's not going to be short-winded. So we say the best for last, Attorney Mayambo Mbanza, all the way in the Chicago area practicing law. How's it going?
Doing well, doing well. God is blessing, can't complain. I appreciate you having us back here, and yeah, looking forward to questions from our guests. And this is a Women Month. Big shout out to all the women, grandmas, mamas, baby mamas, and ex-girlfriends. You know what I'm saying?
All right. So on that note, oh man, we are going to talk about this podcast.
Wives, bro. You didn't say wives, bro.
Yep.
I don't want to discriminate. They're women, right?
Right. Right. So shout out to all women, side chicks, side pieces, ex-wives. All right. So we want to talk about the Pez Outlaw documentary that was on Netflix. We want to react to it. It was a lot of gold in this. Attorney Jacobie actually put me on to it, and so once I watched it, I was like, wow, this is a really good movie to react to, and a lot that small business owner can learn from. So I want to play a little bit of the trailer, just to give a little clip of it, and then I can summarize some of the movie and the documentary. And then we can talk about our reactions and some legal lessons that people can walk away from. So, all right. And if you are listening, for those are listening, I see there are people listening. Please feel free to put your who you are in the comments. We want to shout you out, and especially if you're a small business owner, put your business in the comments. We want to shout you out. It's a Small Business Saturday podcast, so we love shouting out small business owners and promoting you guys. So, and feel free to ask questions. We want this to be as interactive as possible. All right, so I'm gonna just play a little bit, a small clip of the trailer, and we want to. Let's see here. Um, where is this? Okay, yeah, here we go. And okay, perfect. Everybody can see the screen.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. We're gonna do a small clip.
Welcome to the wonderful world of Pez collecting. You're hooked now.
No one knew where he came from.
But everybody wanted what he was selling.
Pez. It's like printing money.
Okay, so that's it. I wanted to share from that. So essentially, I see Al Williams from the Alan Powell Show chimed in with a comment. Thanks for tuning in, Al. Appreciate you tuning in. So that's just a little clip of it. So back in the 90s, we're going to take a time travel. Back in the 90s, there was the Pez candy dispensers that were extremely popular amongst people, and we were selling them. They were selling them, and it was an extremely popular thing. And as you can see in the video, what it looked like, and I'll even share some images of what they looked like. They were different characters on the candy dispensers, and as you can see, these are how they looked. These are probably the most current Pez with new characters on it, but it had different characters on it, and you can get candy from these character Pez candy dispensers. It became, like I said, it was a very popular business. It was an international business. They had different sections. They had, it was, it was all across the world. And there was a Pez USA headquarters here in the United States, and then they had multiple headquarters across the world. And so Steve Glue was this guy who was really interested in Pez, and he saw that someone was selling Pez, reselling Pez. So he bought the Pez for $1. He saw someone buy a Pez for $1, and he decided that he wanted to resell that Pez. He saw someone resell that Pez for $25. So he said, "Wow, that's a huge margin. I want to get in on that because there end up being like this whole Pez culture, Pez community of people who just like collecting Pez. They thought it was really cool, and they were willing to pay a little bit more extra money for certain Pez's that were released. So what ended up happening is Steve Glue, he ends up trying to figure out how can he start selling Pez, and I kind of forgot how it started, but somehow or another he found out where the manufacturer was in a whole nother country. I forgot how he did it. I don't know. I know his son helped him out, but somehow he ended up finding these manufacturers in a whole nother country. So he finds a manufacturer in a whole nother country. He ends up talking to one of the people who are producing these different Pez items, and the guy ended up giving him some, I guess, free Pez to take back to America that were not released yet to America. because the Pez USA didn't like these particular Pez's for whatever reason, and so he had them, and and as a collector item. So he decided he brought these back to the USA. He brought these couple Pez back to the USA, and they began to sell crazy. And he said, "Okay, I got to go back." So then he began to make trips back to this manufacturer in another country. He ended up having, a full bag at one point, just a huge sack of Pez's, and he was caught by, the border when he's trying to, ship these in, and because the Pez company didn't register their Pez with the custom protections, their intellectual property with the custom protection border, that they allowed him to bring these Pez's in. So he was bringing in these different Pez's, and he made. They said that he made almost $11 million selling these different Pez's. He became super popular, and eventually Pez decided that they wanted to shut him down, and what they did was, so eventually he decided that he wanted to create his own Pez, and he found someone that was willing to create his own Pez, and they copied the designs that he made. The Pez company just copied designs that Steve Glue made, and eventually they began to sell it for cheaper than Steve Glue was, and that shut him down. And Steve Glue is now making money off telling his story. That's just a long story short of the documentary. So I want to know what you guys' thoughts were on the documentary, and people that are watching, I want to know your thoughts on the documentary. But we'll start with you, Attorney Whitley, because you suggested this documentary. What were your thoughts on the documentary? Just your general thoughts.
So I thought it was a very interesting documentary. Again, I put on documentaries in the background when I do work, so I figured this is something that would just be background noise. Pez, I used to eat the candy. Who cares? I might learn a random fact. But when he had to get to customs, and that scene when he explained, the custom agents explained, like, you're dead wrong. However, we researched, and the trademark, the Pez trademark, was not filed with customs. And so since they failed to do their due diligence, and since they're not a small business, they're a company with the resources to hire the best lawyers in the country, I'm going to let you have it, little guy. And that spoke volumes to me. And it was, I think, was a real life portrayal of how these systems work together and the law, and how people will sometimes say, hey, you're a business, just like a judge. You're a business. You should have known better. So I'm gonna let this little guy just run amok because you should have known better. And that is the position sometimes I have to tell my clients, that, yeah, the judge will not just say, oh, I know you were wrong, but you didn't have any culpability. No, the judges will absolutely hold that business owner accountable and say, look, you should have done these things, and since you didn't, I'll allow it, essentially. So that spoke volumes to me, and that little loophole, if you will, was how he was able to create millions. And also that spoke to me because a lot of businesses exploit loopholes, and that's how they're able to make their millions. And so that was the hook. Everything else, for me, everything else was good information that was icing on the cake. But for those reasons, I thought it was a very, very, very great documentary, which is why I shared it with the group.
Awesome. Yeah, Attorney Mbanza, what were your thoughts on the documentary?
My thought was similar to how Attorney Jacobie kind of explained earlier. I wasn't really too invest in a way that there's a way to deal with regulations, and there's certainly a way to deal with business. All have to be either they go together, or at some point one have to find a way to eat. But whatever you find doesn't have to go to it, especially against the feds. You don't want to do that. So, and a direct message to our listener is that we get tempted in the business, right? Let me cut corners here. Let me do this right here. Some people cut corners and they have a lot of budget to back it up if they feel the heat from either the states or the feds. And then you, a little guy, and you want to cut corner because you saw so and so cut corners. Then what happens is you get burned, you get shut down, and that's it. So do the right thing. I know we hear all the time that you do the wrong thing, you get away with it for so many years and stuff like that. Wrong, wrong. One day it's gonna come out. And then to our business owner, listener, or any listener, is that try to stay away from temptations in the cutting corners. And that's really my address on that very topic.
Yeah, that brings out an interesting point. I mean, and I'm gonna hand it over to you, Attorney Whitley, and even to the audience. I want to know your thoughts on this. Like, who was you rooting for? Like, were you rooting for Steve?
Underdog.
Jacobie said he's rooting for the underdog, or are you rooting for Pez? Because technically, what Steve was doing was wrong. And it's funny how the documentary made him out to be the victim, but we can talk about that. I want to know what your thoughts are, people in the that are watching. Who are you rooting for, Steve or Pez? But go ahead, Shannon. What are your thoughts on everything, and who were you rooting for?
So I'll just echo the sentiments that were already said. I mean, I saw the same things Cove and Chief alluded to. What I didn't know is that Pez was a big industry like that. It was a big deal. I mean, I guess I didn't realize I got a couple, frozen Elsa Anna pegs, and then now I told the kids, "Hey, put those up." They so for me, it was not, I guess, realizing that there were people out there that truly paid. Like some folks were saying they paid $3,000 for the Bubblegum Joe or whoever that was. And it's like, wow.
Yeah.
But I liked the. So what I appreciated about Steve Glue was that he created a market, right? He created he carved out a special place for people who loved Pez, but weren't able to get them, basically, right? So he was basically going overseas to go get the product and bring them back, because there was people like him that obviously collected these things. Now again, I think back to when I was a kid, some of the ones I ate out of and threw away, maybe I should have kept them because they, were worth some money. But definitely rooted for him, man, because I think he single-handedly caused the company to have to revamp, right? And I think that's huge. When one person, a small guy in some city out in Michigan, can cause a conglomerate like Pez to have to reconfigure, revamp, throw funds and money behind some of this stuff. I think, I always root for those kind of people.
Yeah, I mean, and thanks for that. I think it's just interesting because, Steve Glue eventually tried to create his own Pez product, right? And they basically copied him and took his playbook. I don't know. I was rooting for. I'm always rooting for underdog, but at the same time, I'm like, well, what you did was technically wrong, right? And it was illegal. Should you not have any sympathy for Pez because they've invested all this money to building their brand, and now you got some guy who's making millions off of their brand? Don't you think that Pez has rights, and those rights should have been protected above Steve's rights? Shannon, what are your thoughts on that?
So I think they did or do, but I think, like Kobe alluded to earlier, they should have did what they had to do to make sure they were protected. Right. The only reason why he was allowed to do what he did was because there were no, we'll call it trademark, copyright, whatever you want to call it. There were no protections in place, so he was able to start a, call it Pez 2.0, however you want to word it. He was able to do that. And I think again, I think it's important to understand and realize, in the event you get to a particular place, call it in the market, and you don't have these protections in place, there will be competitors, right? And I think at that point, it's up to you as the company to figure out how you protect your asset. And I think, like Cole alluded to, for them to have as much money as they had, they failed, and somebody exploited it. I mean, and after he exploited it, then they circled back and were trying to, Monday morning quarterback it. But at the end of the day, he was able to stick it to Pez. I mean, he made $11 million off selling these little plastic candy dispensers. I mean, like, you saw he was able to buy a farm, pay off the house, redo the, He made $11 million off of selling candy dispensers. That's huge. And if you think about it, that's profit that Pez didn't make, because he was able to make that happen. So I think it was a costly mistake, right? Because again, them not having the proper protections in place cost them presumably, $11 million.
Right. And go ahead.
And I was
going to say, I'll say this and I'll hand it right to you. I think you brought up a good point, Attorney Whitley, about is it the government's job to enforce your rights? And that's where it gets, that civil and criminal gets often mixed up, right? Where it's like, oh, this person breached the contract. Well, okay, you call the police. Well, now the police can't help you. They're going to tell you, hey, go file a lawsuit, or that's civil. And even though sometimes, in my world, I see where people improperly file criminal charges when it should have been a civil suit, but that's another podcast in and of itself. But I think that's a good point, which is, you have to, know your rights as a business owner, or at least be in contact and connected with a business lawyer so that you can take civil, routes to protect yourself, not just depend on the government to protect you. But go ahead, Jacob.
Yes. So I appreciate that, Justin. And I was trying to piggyback off of, it kind of ties in what you're saying, the idea that, because I think one of the European cats says is at the end, like, why are you doing this documentary about Steve Glue? He's the loser, right? And you were saying, like, they made him out to be the victim. All right. So this is lawyering. So if y'all seen this podcast before, y'all know what goes with that. All right. So this is lawyering, right?
Right.
Steve Glue had the more exciting fact pattern. That's why his story is getting told. And also, Steve Glue is an American. This is an American story. Like, this is, dare I say, what America is about. Dare I go further and say that this is what America is built on, and why America has entities like corporations, LLCs, and things of that nature. And while you're able to set one up in business and exploiting loopholes is part of American business, right? And I think, I always like to take a step back, right? And just start with what are we even reading, right? So the name of the thing was the Pez Outlaw, not the Pez victim, not the Pez who did it right, who did it wrong, the outlaw. The guy, whether right or wrong, took the chance because they felt right, right? There's a dynamic in Buddhism called demon hand, Buddha heart, which means you aggressively go after whatever that goal is, because that goal should be a righteous goal, right? And if you believe in manifest destiny, then you should also believe in Steve Glue. You know what I'm saying? And there's a large swath of America that would say manifest destiny was okay, right? And that was a gray area. So why wouldn't what Steve Glue did? And this is something near and dear to me because in DC, there's a battle going on right now with I-71 shops. And they're taking an outlaw stance saying that, hey, this is our right. We should be able to operate these businesses, and there's conflict in the law. And they're saying that's not our fault. Y'all supposed to figure that out. And before you figure it out, I'm going to make as much money as I can until y'all figure it out, because it's not my fault. But you guys didn't write your laws properly. And I'm going to use that to my advantage. And using things to your advantage is the American, to be in America. If there's anything that we are trained to do, whether we know it or not, is to exploit advantages. And those of us that are not trained to do that fall by the wayside, because that is what America is built on. And that is what this Netflix documentary was about, and why it was about Steve Glue, because he was an outlaw and America loves an outlaw.
Okay. Interesting perspective there. Interesting perspective. Okay. So you're saying that, Steve was a true American, stealing off of other people's ideas.
Absolutely. You talk about 10 toes, standing 10 toes down, and then think about it. He didn't receive any criminal liability, right? Even though they shut him down business-wise, but that's after he bought the farm. That's after he sent his daughter to school.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? That is America. Like, I don't understand. That's what small businesses are paying us to do. Find me every legal advantage that you can to progress my business. I know some of Shannon's clients come in the office and say that to his face. Like, I need you to find me every single advantage legally that you can. And if I need to put another 10,000 on that retainer so you don't got to call me back, I'll do it. And that's the game. That is the game, my friend. And so this was just like American Gangster. This was the Pez version of American Gangster.
Okay, so I'm gonna and I want to know, audience member. I know there's people watching, so I want to know your thoughts on that. Are you feeling what Attorney Whitley is saying, that he just played the game how America plays the game, or do you think legally what he did was wrong? He should have never done it. But to Attorney Buhari, I want to bring a thought to you, a different scenario. So I had a situation where someone was trying to sue my client, and they sold fake Gucci, and they sold fake, designer clothing. And I said, first of all, your whole business model is illegal. You're violating several trademark laws. You can't come to me in court with an illegal business model. And her response was, well, that's a replica. We're a replica company. So how do you feel about that, Attorney Buhari, in that scenario?
So I know that these replica companies, when I think of replica companies, I think of like people selling stuff in the swap meets and at flea markets, right? But you'll see the feds come in and seize that stuff because it is counterfeit, right? And I think at the end of the day, whether you're a replica company or not, that's what it is. If you're creating this product to imitate and or replicate the real thing, that's counterfeiting, right? That's why you and I can't print money right now, because it's illegal. So, I mean, I've seen here in the state of Indiana and even in Michigan, the feds will go in and bust up these replica type rings and hit people with counterfeiting. So I would probably have told that person to find somebody else. I can't do it. Because again, I think the reason your company could be profitable is because you're pretending that this is the real deal, right? The real McCoy. The only reason your company, your replica has value is because Gucci has value, right? Because Louis Vuitton has value. If that stuff didn't have value either, your product wouldn't have value. So you're definitely infringing on their copyrights, patents, trademarks. Uh, and again, I don't think a replica company to me is a company that makes model cars, right? That are to scale, not people that are going out here. Because I know when I buy when I see that, you know, Model T Ford or that '67 Vet on Justin's desk that he didn't pay $70,000 for, and it's not. I mean, so to me, that's what a replica company is.
Right.
When I make that,
But what if you know you're buying fake? What if I'm saying, hey, I'm the fake Gucci. I'm Fucci.
to me, you're fraudulent. That's what you're a counterfeiter. I mean, but that's what it is. I think at that point you're a counterfeiter, right? I don't think you can make a space. I don't think a legal business is an entity that's selling knockoff or counterfeit material because at some point, and you know, perfect world, it doesn't happen. But Gucci hears about it. They send the cease and desist. Right? At that
Now,
point, you
so
can't.
what is the difference between that and Pez Outlaw?
So I think he was grabbing the real McCoy. He was just selling it for street value, right?
Okay.
He was getting the real product. So it'd be I think the analogy there is if there was somebody that worked at Gucci that was letting it go out the back door, and then you were able to sell real Gucci on the street for maybe less. That's what he was doing. He was going overseas to get the product. It wasn't as if he was making replica Pez dispensers in his basement and then selling them as if they were the real deal, right? He was going overseas to get the product and just bringing it back because there was a scarcity here. There were some overseas that they had that we didn't have here, and that collectors were paying top dollar for. So he wasn't selling knockoff or counterfeit Pez dispensers, right? Like your client is, you know,
Not my client.
No,
It's not my client.
allegedly. I do think there's a difference there, right? I think again, I think there's a difference between selling to call it the real McCoy, just at a cheaper value, as opposed to selling a knockoff or a counterfeit product.
But eventually he did, right? So eventually he ended up getting connected with one of their manufacturers to create his own designs because they ended up cutting them off. So he ended up creating his own designs and ordering a bunch of them. I mean, so he is in a sense creating his own somewhat of a replica of the real thing because it's technically not from the company, right? He's not selling it as a part of the company. He has someone inside creating it for him.
Right.
At
So
that point,
again,
he's a replica
I think, but even then, though, he's still using the actual
brand versus
yeah.
the actual company.
So
Okay.
if somebody on the inside says Justin will create, I mean, that's the Dapper Dan for Gucci, right? Right. Dapper Dan has his own, call it line or within Gucci. Dapper Dan has his own, call it outfit, right? That they created for the stylist Dapper Dan. So I mean, I think it's like that. I would look at it as he was just smart enough to exploit again the one. I think whoever was on the inside was probably making more money creating these designs. So that's another business topic, maybe for another day, right? Making sure you have the right team around you, right? Because if somebody's on the inside leaking, you know, if somebody at KFC just for the right price gets rid of that 11 herbs and spices recipe, KFC's in trouble, right? So I mean, but again, I think there's a difference between replicas and the real thing just from a different channel or a different avenue.
Okay. All right. So, Terry, is there anything you want to add to that whole replica discussion?
No, I agree with you guys. However, I would disagree though. If the Gucci was a G and a C and not two G's, and instead of saying Gucci, it said Fucci, it might be not similar anymore, right? It might not be substantially similar anymore, right? Because Gucci begins with the G, Fucci begins with the F.
It's not happening.
And Gucci, the double G.
We went down this road before with Adidas and my man's with the 4 stripes, bro.
Right, and he won though. He won. We did it. He won. He won though. That's the thing. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm hopeful. I thought you would bring that up. And he won. And you said, "Force, roll the tape. Roll the tape."
That's right. So yeah, just for the audience, you're saying, in our last podcast, we talked about Adidas versus was it Tom Brown with the stripes? It was what, 3 stripes versus 4 stripes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And a jury decided. Well, I think it was a jury. A jury decided that they were different enough.
Yeah.
So Tom Brown is not infringing on Adidas' rights.
See what I'm saying? I got 3 G's instead of 2. You know what I'm saying? My J look like a little clover. Just said.
Yeah. Okay.
But no,
so,
but for the audience, for the ease of conversation, that's what I do. I'm just throwing that out there. However, the point is, yes, counterfeiting cannot be supplanted by saying, "Hey, this is a replica." Counterfeiting is counterfeiting. If it's substantially similar, it's substantially similar, and that's a counterfeit. It's infringement. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna get into the weeds about all the what ifs and the spinoffs because that can go forever.
Right. Okay, so one thing I talk to my clients a lot. I mean, I feel like I say this almost every single day, which is, okay, you're in my office because you have a problem, right? And it's a legal problem, but there's different solutions to a legal problem. And there's a legal way we can go about this, and then there is a practical way, right? And it's a way that doesn't necessarily get the courts involved. And so they decided to go a very practical way. They didn't get the courts involved. They just said, okay, well, we're just going to copy your stuff and sell it for cheaper. We're just going to copy Steve's designs and sell it for cheaper. How do you feel about that? Attorney, anybody can take it. And do you think they should have taken it a more legal way instead of a more practical way? They took it.
All right. I love the way Pez crushed this guy. It was beautiful.
I thought you was for the underdog, and I ain't talking about you love this.
Look, man, it's all good practice. You know what I'm saying? And they were both gangsters about it,
right?
But because the fact that they didn't have the right trademark registration in place with customs, and that was already too late to close that loophole, I think that's why they couldn't go with a legal option. It was too sloppy. It would have cost way too much money, right? So what do I do, right? I'm still the company, so I find out you're doing this little sideways deal, right? I jump into the company, the third-party company that you're getting this new product printed in. I go behind your back, pay them, right, a bump, a bonus to give me access to your designs, which are technically my designs, right? You know what I'm saying? And then I'm going to sell them and price you out the market. So instead of me just spending legal fees, right, I make money to help absorb the losses that you created, and I price you out the market So now you are gone away. And I spent my legal fees on having my lawyers, which might have been in-house counsel. So I just paid them their salary to concoct this situation without going to get outside counsel. And we made a little money to push this guy out the market instead of just paying legal fees. That could have went years until we got a verdict, and would have been cost us substantially more without a return. Because they're not going to beat Steve Glue and then ask for attorney's fees. He's not going to be able to come up with it. Right? That's one of the factors of attorney's fees. Can you pay them? Right? So being practical, right? The legal side is like, oh, you should have sued. But the practical business side of it is what they did. And I think that was a brilliant play because they saved a ton of legal fees and was able to address the issue a lot quicker, and all their documents remained in-house. So it's still a private affair because, they didn't have to get outside, like the designs and stuff was still their internal mechanisms, right? So no one externally from Pez got involved. So they didn't increase their embarrassment in the community. So to me, how they stomped them out was well played. I think it was a well fought fight, man. Both fighters did very well.
Right.
It was a great fight, man.
Right. Okay, so Attorney Mbanza, right? You are a litigator, right?
Yes, sir.
And you
That's what people think I am, a litigator.
Okay. So you have no problem taking stuff to court, right?
It depends.
Well, it depends on a lot of different circumstances, but
Yep.
for the most part, if there's a legal issue that a legitimate legal issue that you can win in court, you're taking it to court, right?
Legitimate issue. Somebody's trying to get their rights vindicated. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, we as lawyers know there's a lot of legal actions that they could have taken. In this case, Pez, the company, the corporation, could have taken against Steve. How do you feel about the way that they did it? And if they were to hire you as their lawyer, would you have taken it to court? Knowing that you technically on the books, you're right. The law is in your favor. Wouldn't you have taken it to court, or would you allow them to do it the way they did it?
Yeah, like I initially stated, it depends on a couple of things. Is my client wealthy?
Yes.
Does my clients have means?
Yes. The answer is yes to that. So,
then yes to that. And then do we have a blur line or clear cut, right of the individual that's or case or claim, right? But
what do you say? Do you think it was blur? Do you think their rights were blurry, or you think it was clear cut?
You can never say without exploring all other aspects of the facts, right? Which I am not necessarily privy to, but in this particular instance here, for example, I will, as addressing my listener here, the viewers on this podcast, we always have to evaluate what's at stake, right? And also come up with a roadmap as this is where we start, and this is what we do. And to what extent do you feel like we should just stop and, you can go about your business? Because it's not only the money aspect or recovery aspect in the case. There is a mental toll on that as well. A lot of people are not familiar with the court system. They hate the court system. They don't want to be involved with it, zooming in, zooming out, going to court and coming back, deposition and all the kind of stuff. It's annoying to a lot of people. It may be a routine thing for a lawyer, but it doesn't. How does that affect the people? And then there's also other things. It could be a case where father and a husband and wife are involved claiming something. And then in the middle of it, husband and wife start to get the divorce. So now their claim have to be split. One of them started. So like I said, it depends on the circumstances. It really depends on the circumstances, right? So I'll say this. If there's a claim, clear claim, I'll follow it to the stick. I have to decide that here I'm willing to fight. If the defendant is or the opposing party is a high stake type of client, they got money saved up there and willing to fire every single frivolous and real motion to just drain you out. You have to be ready for that and explain that to the client. This is what we can get. So I will take a case to court if you have your claim, and I will defend it zealously because advocacy is what I do, right? To what extent, it will depend on how far the client wants to go. Long story short.
Okay.
Mm. I have a divorce case where husband and wife are involved in some kind of business claiming against a person, but now no, it's not a divorce case. It's a business case, right? The claim against an entity. Now, during the situation, the case is taking its course in a court system. Husband and wife start having issues. Now they're not talking, and then the court says, I will have to have wife here, otherwise her complaint is going to be dismissed. Complaint dismissed shrinks the recovery request, right? Or claim, which will maybe move the case from law division to a municipal division. Why? Because the amount claimed now becomes so small, right? So it all depends on the circumstances.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Shan's cracking up over there. What's your thoughts on that? On his response?
I don't really know where to start. But I think it does depend on the circumstances. And I'll leave it at
that. Okay. All right. No, I think that so I mean what I want the audience to see is two clear options here, right? There was a practical option, but that could have not worked, right? I mean, that's the risk that you take. And then there are statute of limitations on these things. So if you don't take the legal action, you forfeit it. So, what Attorney Mayambo is saying, yeah, if my clients have the means to do it, I'm probably going to go the legal route too, right? And I think that good lawyering comes up to a combination of attacks where, hey, we're going to use some practical steps and we're going to take some legal steps. But of course, all that has a cost to it. And it depends on the means of the client. It depends on the means of the defendant. It depends on what's your ultimate goal here. Do you just want this person to stop doing what they're doing? Or maybe, hey, a quick cease and desist letter or an injunction might work. Or is it, hey, I don't just want this person to stop doing what they're doing. I want them to pay me for all the damages that I feel like I faced. Okay, well, now we got to take this trial. We got to go to court. We got to get a judgment against this person. So it really depends on the goal of the client, their means, and really trying to figure out, okay, well, maybe we can just have a conversation. Maybe we can agree to, some other strategies outside of legal, or maybe we need just to go straight legal, whatever. These are all strategy sessions that we have to have with our client when we're trying to focus on what is the end goal. Another thought I thought about was, so licensing, right? And Disney is the world's biggest licensor, and people steal Disney brands all the time. But Disney got smart about it and said, okay, well, we're going to just start licensing our intellectual property. Do you think that maybe a wiser choice would have been, hey, let's have a conversation with Steve Blue's legal counsel and work out some sort of a licensing deal? How do you feel about that, Attorney Burari?
I think it could have worked, but I think, as Cove alluded to a little earlier, I think internally they were messed up. So I think the reason this didn't move forward on so many avenues, so many levels, is because it would have exposed where they were and how they were not equipped to handle this from the beginning. And then again, man, you got somebody on the inside letting go of product. You got somebody on the inside designing the Pez designs for them to make it sell. Like, I think it would have just blown up. So I don't know if they could have licensed it without cleaning up in house. And then I think the question becomes: so I think Disney is able to license because they own so much, right? I mean, if you look at what the Walt Disney label owns, it owns ESPN,
Right.
ABC. I mean, Goofy. The
Right.
people, I mean, the characters we know, but it also owns Marvel, right? Avengers.
Right.
So it owns enough to where okay, maybe I can license and make a couple dollars over here because it won't hurt me. I don't know if Pez could have done that, and that could just be sheer ignorance on my behalf because I don't know what all Pez owns. To me, it was just the dispensers, right? So if it was, if they were going to provide him an avenue to make more money than them, then I don't know how they would have been able to do that. That makes sense. I just don't know. I mean, with Disney, you got the theme parks. I mean, there's so much. So for me, they're in a position to license because they don't have anything to lose. Um, but I don't know if Pez was in the same space because I don't know outside of the dispensers what else they have.
Yeah. Attorney Whitley, I mean, what are your thoughts? Do you think there's some sort of deal that Pez could have worked out with Steve, or even Steve trying to attempt to work out some type of deal with Pez? Or you think this was just, it had to be a fight, made a best man win? Do you think there could have been some sort of mutual agreement that could have worked, whether that was licensing or something else?
It could have been, but that wasn't what Pez wanted, so it wasn't.
Right.
Like, so
Why
let me
empower him?
right. Like, so bam. Right. What Shannon said was understood, don't gotta be explained. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, yo, they Mr. Glue exploited a vulnerability of Pez. Pez was not happy about it. So Pez was not going to extend an olive branch, even though they could have licensed it, opened it up more, opened the market up, got more customers, because these licensees would have been able to get into niche markets that a high scale marketing campaign might have missed. So like a large scale marketing campaign might get major cities, but not small towns. If you get licensees in these little niche markets that can show up at all these little county fairs and things like that, then you can get the brand saturated in those markets as well. And Pez would have made more money, right? And that's what I think Disney does, right? Like, we don't got to make all these t-shirts. Like Shannon was saying, we already own theme parks. We got t-shirts in our theme parks, but you got another company that we didn't think about, and you want to put the Hulk on it. Pay us a little bread, and that's cool with us because we're gonna get the Hulk out to another generation, another demographic. And then because we have the theme parks, they're gonna want to see the next movie. They're gonna want to ride the ride. So it makes sense for Disney to get out.
Right.
It's free testers almost. It's not even free. Like, you know what I'm saying? Everything goes back. I mean, it's America. America was built on the streets, man. America was built on guns and violence. Like, let's be honest, right? Robbery, manifest destiny. Like, so these concepts still play out, right? In regular business. I just say it in a way that people can relate if you've seen New Jack City. But other than that, it's the same thing, right? So they're giving out more exposure through the licenses to the brand, which makes the brand more money, right? So that's why Disney would do it. Pez wouldn't do it because they wanted to crush Glue. So there's no way. And then they didn't want to do a license deal with anybody else because they don't want to encourage the small time people, right? And Pez was trying to do something different. Pez was trying to get a licensing deal from Disney so the Hulk could be on the Pez dispenser. Right? So they were looking to do licensing deals and become a licensee of other popular characters, more so than us license people to be able to sell Pez, right? Because they wanted to get it from retail, hold it, and then once you run out, just like the shoes, right? You can buy it at retail, but you don't give licenses out because you want that small quantity, supply and demand. You want that supply to run out, and that low supply creates that
high demand
external market, that third party market,
Right.
that resale market. So then
Right.
you can resell it for the higher profits.
Right.
So there's another train of thought. The licensing deal would have hurt the Steve Glues of the world, because then that would have cut into that market, right? So that's just my man.
But I'm just saying that was another way of going about it. You know what I'm saying? And getting him to agree to it and saying, all right, well, if you're going to sell my products, you're going to sell it on my terms, right?
Gangsterism 101.
You know, and so, you know, and you said they were just so, and they talked about, they call him the president, right? The president, with the guy who was the president of the Pez USA, how he was just so angry about what was going on and emotionally, just so emotional about it. And, you know, it got me thinking, well, maybe he wasn't thinking objectively, right? Because you're so upset about someone infringing on your you know, on your rights.
That's
you're not thinking
off, Justin. But that's the whole point. That's the whole point that we have this podcast. Yes, the president of Pez was pissed off,
right?
But his lawyers weren't.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? He just went upset into the meeting, and then the lawyers were like, no matter how he feels about it, we have to come up with the best strategy,
right,
to get the goal across.
Right.
Now, because he was pissed off, the goal was crush Steve Glue.
Right.
And the lawyers thought it was a cool, calm way to do that. Right. And that's it. But I don't think he made decisions were made out of his emotional state. Right. I think the decisions were made by the legal department that get paid to make business decisions unemotionally. And that's the filter. And if you don't have a legal rep, this is how it's in a small business, you can often make emotional decisions that aren't based in good business, that are to the detriment of your company because they're short-sighted and not looking at it in the long term. Right. Look at us on this podcast. Look at how many perspectives we get from different angles by talking about the legal angles. You're not going to do that when you're mad and you're the sole member of your LLC.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You're going to do whatever feels right. And you could shoot yourself in the foot, which is why it pays to have a legal counsel, because the legal counsel is going to balance with what they can extrapolate from your emotions is the goal, and try to come up with the calm, level-headed way to get you to that goal, but filter out your emotions.
Right. Attorney Mbanza, I know you want to respond, so I'll let you go ahead.
I wanted to add to what he said. He used a very key word, vulnerability of the parties, and that is very used in settlement negotiation. Right, and settlement negotiation is a very good skill set for one firm to have, one attorney to have. If you don't have it, you can hire somebody else to settle the case for you. Just because the other person just knows how to settle, especially if you are settling with insurance companies, for example. You know, they know the ins and outs and what to bring and what to trick you about and what to distract you with and things like that. And in this particular case, for example, most cases, before I even say that, most cases don't go to trial. You know, they get settled in the beginning, at the inception or midway through the trial. You know, and because sometimes even judges will encourage and say, okay, they can either say straight up or give you some ideas. I think this should settle rather than going to court, because they have seen things settled that way. So now you're looking at it from a perspective of how illegally efficient this is, or how emotionally, like Attorney Jacobie said, it's appealing to the party. Some parties come in with the idea, I want to stick this to their face, you know. So that's why it boils down to, okay, yeah, I want to stick it to their face, but how legally efficient that is. Because in courtroom, they also say, they use a concept called judicial efficiency. right? Why don't we just save time, cut on the court costs, and move forward with this way rather than any other? Because in the end, the outcome may be this or that. I've always told my clients and say, the case is here. If a settlement is something that you can walk away with, somewhat satisfied, yes, because you may have a case, a claim. This is a jury case. For some reasons, like Mr. Whitley indicated, we have a variety of perspective on this. The same way the jury will look at your case. Who this one is. I mean, what do I have to make a good decision for her to get the money and walk away with it? And they decide otherwise. Then all of a sudden, the jury, who is not your uncle or your auntie, turns over. Then you have to appeal because obviously something happened, right? Or just walk away without it.
So are you getting a deal done? I mean, is that going to be one of your options? Is this your client?
I've always tried to get the deal done prior to going there, because although you have a claim, something may happen. You can go, the jury decides for you, but they decide for a lower amount than the settlement offer. You're not going to turn around and say, I want to take the settlement offer. That's what the jury decided. And they may decide based on a lot of things. When I tell them, hey, listen, I've always you know what time it is, so it's about thinking about yourself, thinking about what happened really, and thinking about what you want to do. Don't get too greedy about it. I mean, if you had a broken leg, that's fine. But if it's just a bruise on a cheek, let's look at it differently, right? Yeah. So special damages versus nominal damages and stuff like that. So I think that to answer your question, really, it's all about settlement negotiation skill set. Vulnerabilities of all the parties. How far can I go, and what can I really walk away with this, and things like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I want to take this time to thank our sponsor, Black Watches.
Go ahead and show off the watch. Well, where did you get that from, Attorney Mbanza?
The one and only Shannon Biari Black Watch.
Me and Jacobie are thinking the same thing. We want to thank our sponsor, Black Watches, for sponsoring today's episode. Shannon Buari, do you want to talk more about Black Watches, where people can find Black Watches?
www.blakwatches.com.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very professional, good-looking watch. You're guaranteed to win a case if you're a lawyer. So,
and you guarantee. Ever since I've been wearing this, I've been on time all the time. For some reason,
you'll never be late for court.
For some reason, I'm always like this. All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay. So we're getting towards the end here. So I guess I'll just let you guys wrap up quickly. Just 1 or 2 points. Hey, to the audience, here's what you need to walk away from. If you don't understand all the legal lingo, whatever, here's 1 or 2 points that you should walk away with. If you're a small business owner, you watch this podcast, you watch the documentary, here's 1 or 2 points you should walk away with. So anybody can go first, and then we'll get this going.
I will. I think, again, we've said it almost ad nauseum during this podcast, but it's to always, always, always make sure you have the proper protections in place for your business, whether it be the proper contract, proper trademarks, proper licensing agreements, proper patents, trade secrets, etc., non-disclosures. I mean, we've done podcasts on all of those. I think this is a testament, if you will, to why it's important to have those in place. right? Pez has those in place. There is no documentary. We're not having this conversation. So I think it's always, always, always important to make sure you have those proper protections in place.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't add anymore.
I thought your point about what did you say? The practical
Legal versus practical, right?
Legal versus practical. I
Right.
thought that was key. I had a 2-hour conversation with a client because we were discussing those strategies yesterday.
Right.
Right. And it is something to consider. You are aware of your legal rights and your legal options and what you can call Mayambo to do for you. Attorney Mbanza, right? He'll parachute in, right? But he's gonna parachute in at a cost, right? And like he was explaining, we don't know the outcome of trials. Even we might have the best case ever, but there's variables with trial. And there's a practical solution. That's kind of like the bird in the hand, right? That might take a little more time. It might not be exactly what you want, but it is real. So weighing those options and not just looking at your legal rights, but also weighing that with what is actually practical is something that you, like Attorney Buhari said, you and your attorney that help you set up all your best practices and make sure that you're compliant need to discuss if something does go left, right? What are my legal options and what are my practical options, and then balance them.
Perfect. Yeah. Attorney Mbanza, 1 to 2 items. If you would not a thesis, I don't need you to give a whole motion for summary judgment. 1 or 2 items that you feel that you want people to walk away from. I want to shout out one of our listeners, Malcolm Adams. Great job. He has a small business, MLA Printing, here in Northwest Indiana. Thanks for listening, Malcolm. But go ahead, Attorney Mbanza. 1 to 2.
Here's the thing.
Don't let them put limits on you, bro. Shoot for the sky,
baby. So it's difficult to do business, whether it's a regular business, even a lawyer business. It's hard. You think about it all the time, and especially if you are a small business, and sometimes it gets overwhelming. That's when it becomes like, okay, I have to think about booking. I have to think about invoicing. I have to think about intake and all the kind of stuff, how to please customers and stuff like that. But then the question becomes, where are you headed with all this as a one person if you are not sharing or delegating some of these tasks? And people get lost in it and they start to, instead of thinking of the right thing, which is the legal ramification of everything they do, in the business. That's why you probably like, okay, it's best for me to let a lawyer think for me in this kind of aspect, right? And then find me some right answer, because I can sit here the whole day, question this, question there, while the answer is there saying, all I need is ask and go from there. I always want to encourage folks to say, okay, what am I doing wrong? If anything, I'm doing things right, but it's possible that I could be doing something wrong too. So let me bounce back the idea with somebody else, another business owner, maybe another lawyer, to see what I'm doing. Because we can never say that we are perfect in the business that we're doing, whether you're a lawyer or just business or whatever, what am I doing wrong? If I find it out wrong, how do I eliminate it? Is this wrong coming with a risk that I can deal with, or a risk that I must eradicate from my business perspective or business operation? So think of it every day that way. And if you can't think of it, share ideas with other business owners or lawyers, and that's how you go about doing things. There's a lot of mistakes in doing business, and there's a lot of room for failure in business. And then those who fail are those the one that trying to not to ask or seek, answers, and to seek from the right people, and that's what my encouragement is just keep doing it, set your goal high, and you can make it. Failure is not an option.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
You always do this.
That was a very intense 1 to 2 points.
My man off in the middle of his upliftment, bro.
We're trying to wrap up, but
Hey, Cole, you had another 20 minutes in him, so thank you, Justin.
I was there for the spirit, bro. I needed right bro. I was
after 10 minutes, he said, so my 1 to 2 points are.
Saturday and my Sunday, bro.
My man.
Yeah, but I think my points will be, as Attorney Buari mentioned earlier, find the right team. Internal management is key, right? Like that shouldn't have never been happening. You got to tighten that up, and I think people don't understand how important policy plays in legal world, right? Because you can have good contracts or whatever, but you got to have policy as well to be able to prevent some of these issues from happening. And that's something that I go through with my clients. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, you're technically right legally, but you need to fix the issue, which is you need to fix your company policy so this type of stuff won't keep happening again. I think another thing is too, just your brand is powerful, right? And intellectual property, we sometimes we don't value it, but it's valuable, right? And someone out there, loves what you're doing and will want to steal your idea and how you're doing it, right? And so it's important whether you need to get a trademark or a copyright or a patent. You need to make sure you're doing everything you can to protect that and constantly update your protections as you grow, right? Because if you're just starting out and you just got 2 customers right now, you don't need to be worried about international protections, right? But year 10, you might need to worry about international protections, right? And so that's why it's good to always keep updating your protections with an attorney. But thank you guys so much for listening.
Listen. Okay. There's another thing here that when you're choosing, right, choose very carefully, because most businesses start from the bottom and they work their way up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you find a lawyer that never started from the bottom, they just went straight, up, they won't feel you. I started from the bottom and came out slow. Have I reached the tip? No, I have not. I'm still there. So when you telling me your stuff about you going through, I feel you. I connect with you, down to earth, right? So when you scared, lawyer gonna hit me with this, they're gonna hit me with that. No, I know I've been there where I wanted somebody to work out a deal with me so I can join, the other circle, in some years. And when I feel you, I can work out something with you. Whereas someone that never stepped in your shoes, right? And they got this firm pass through them, on a silk platter, and then they don't feel you. They're not going to be able to help you out. So be very careful the way you selecting your firms as well. Started from the bottom. Now we're here.
All right. On that note, I do want you guys to share, where people can find you, your areas of law. We'll start with you, Attorney Buari.
Just put the bat sign in the air, baby. I'm there. No, www.aaklaw.com. That's the name of the firm I work for. Buari, last name And at aaklaw.com is how you can reach me via email.
Yeah, and you do everything but criminal, right?
Everything except criminal, baby. That's what I'm doing.
Right here, right in Indiana licensed attorney, located in the South Bend area, South St. Joseph County area. So, Attorney Whitley, tell me who you know, where you from. I mean, you know, where they can find you, and what areas of law you specialize in, and as we wrap up.
Yes, I am licensed in the nation's capital, Chocolate City, Washington, D.C. Right?
Chocolate City. I didn't know it was called that. All right.
So, funny thing, I reconnected with the law school friend, Andrew. He was in our class, my umbo. And I think his last name is McKinney. He's from Kentucky.
Gentleman from Kentucky, yeah.
Yeah. He does work in DC now. I linked up with him last week or this week.
Really?
And he didn't know DC was called Chocolate City either. We got to expand the education out.
I didn't know. I just know.
Yeah, y'all got to get out. But anyway, that is where I am. You can find me on the phone at 202-499-2403, on the web at lawofficeofjkw.com. I'm focusing right now in DC. There's a transition to get compliant with the Medical Cannabis Act. I'm taking a lot of clients in that area. But yeah, business, estate planning, and real estate are my main things. I do some immigration matters, but as my client base has been focusing on now, business, estate planning, real estate. I'm in and out. We filing permits. That's just now we're talking about. We're doing all kinds of stuff. So if you got one of those situations, landlord, tenant, anything like that, go ahead and give me a call, especially if you're in the DC area. If you got a trademark, hit any of us up. I'm very thankful to be on the podcast, and thank you for everyone that's listening. Everyone that listened, though, I challenge you to bring a friend next time. And everyone that watched, I challenge you to bring some more eyes. I'm not going to put a cap on that. But yeah, come on in. And look forward to seeing you guys next time.
Well, Attorney Mbanza here. Your website is banzalaw.com, MBANZALAW.com. I can be reached at 872-304-0384. I am integrated Chicago area, specifically in DuPage County, where I focus on civil and litigation. Trial lawyer, like my colleague stated in the beginning. So it's always a pleasure to figure out, 15 minutes doesn't hurt. Ask a question, get to know you. At least you know that I have someone that I can ask a question to. We available, text, fax, email, you name it. Visit us. We'll be happy to walk your way with you.
All right. Well, and I'm attorney Justin Camper. You can find me at justincamperlaw.com. And I do business, real estate, and criminal defense. And I definitely love working with small business owners when it comes to intellectual property as far as trademarks. So definitely hit me up. If anything hit today that you liked, and please like and comment. If you're watching it on the replay, please feel free to comment. Give us ideas on different topics that you want us to discuss. We take feedback. So if someone say, hey, we want to talk about a certain subject, we actually talk about it. We give our perspective on it. If there's a movie, documentary, something in the news that you want to hear a lawyer's perspective on, feel free to reach out. And like I said, we can you can even reach out to us personally if you want legal consultation. So thank you everybody for listening. I really
one second.
Mbanza, your
just 1 second
points ended. No, I'm just kidding.
Because this is Women Month, but I want to tell ladies out there that you can sue your boyfriend if they kick you out the house, and Tiger wouldn't work girlfriend just did it. So just so you know, maybe we'll talk about next time.
Maybe that's what we'll talk about next time.
I mean, how does that happen though? I mean, I just kick you out of my house, man. Like you talking about you were cleaning and you want some money for cleaning? What else? What else? You know, you gonna have
Next time, Chief. Next time.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. I really appreciate your time. Talk to you soon.
All right.